Welcome. Today's post is 2023 Record HOT Wave Decoded. Published on August 24, 2023. If people are told that record-breaking heat is happening, many will accept it regardless of reality. But if these heat waves are no hotter than normal, but are being promoted as record-breaking, so as to send comms, then what is going on? Here are the topics we'll be decoding today. You can always find this list in the description below. If you enjoy this video, please press the like button, and subscribe for weekly full-length blog posts, and shorter, more shareable videos. Let's begin. For months now I've been decoding a record-breaking heat wave making rounds on mainstream media. Heat wave. If people are told it's record-breaking heat, many will perceive it that way regardless of reality. Placebo effect. So if these heat waves are no more than regular and being discussed as comms, then what is going on? July 14, 2023. Death Valley threatens temperature records, but tourists keep coming. New world record in heat. Calm. If so, what does it mean? This required me look into the former record holder. July 15, 1972. Death Valley heat record on ground. July 15, 1972, Secretariat's maiden victory at Aqueduct Racecourse. I already decoded Secretariat as it's by some measures the most famous race to ever run, but I never noticed the name. It's perfect for the calms I've gone over. Aqueduct, because it's a calm for Watergate. October 26, 1973, President Nixon releases first White House tapes on Watergate scandal. October 28, 1973, Secretariat final race. June 17, 1972, Watergate arrests. June 19, 1972, Washington Post reports a GOP security aide is among the Watergate burglars. July 15, 1972, Secretariat debut at Aqueduct. July 15, 1972, hottest day on Earth. As you can see, the heat was rising from the first week. They wanted to talk about the heat on Nixon, and so they faked a record so as to have a way to do so. Reports about incredible heat, and really giving talks about Watergate. This heat symbol for pressure is easy to prove, look at the mainstream media. With that in mind, it gives us context on what is likely to come. For the first time, something hotter than what they did to Nixon. So hot, it got the resignation of the most powerful in the world. That has never happened again, which is probably why the record remains. There are a few possibilities for who this scandal could be for. But the most obvious one is obvious. A narrative long set up to finally be paid off. Update. New heat record attained in Phoenix. No longer 117/Q, but 118. 17 being a secrecy symbol and going beyond it. Could mean something to go public in a big way soon. This specific heat record was actually from 1998, so what was going on then for heat? July 15, 1998, heat record in Phoenix. July 15, 1998, Ken Starr subpoena face off to get more Clinton data. This was in between when Clinton had flatly refused any impropriety. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, and when he admitted to it. Clinton was then impeached for lying under oath in the House. Not even close to what happened to Nixon, and that is because the media was largely in the bag for him online and off. But then that's not the whole story. As I decoded in this post about Lewinsky, the scandal may have been choreographed to hide a larger scandal. Either that or there was a joint agreement to holding blackmail on Clinton and one side detonated it. Regardless, it was largely choreographed. And what is going on now is as well. The symbol of heat is well defined and could even be applied to the investigation into Biden world. Hunter just took a plea deal to avoid jail, but that's not the end. The investigation into the investigation only just began. And it has the real potential because of how many steps we've seen to cover things up. What got Nixon? The cover-up is always worse than the crime, the lesson often said about Watergate. In that arena Biden's actions have at every stage dug a deeper and deeper hole. But of course, as it's all choreographed, that's the exact reason as to why. More record-breaking heat expected this week. July 23, 2023. Phoenix, another week of heat, 24 days of 110-degree temps, 30% chance of showers this evening. So, what's to happen this week for the heat? July 23, 2023. Archer scheduled to testify against the Biden family this week. He is facing jail for his role in a $60 million bond fraud, which gives him a high incentive to offer information. Breaking a record set in 1974. Nixon impeachment. Phoenix record-breaking heat. Resurrection symbolism. If Biden goes down for corruption, who is then proven right about everything? My first thought on Phoenix is a Trump return, as that is a natural byproduct of Biden falling, but we can't be sure of that. On Tuesday, Phoenix reached a miserable milestone, breaking a record set in 1974. In order to properly solve this, I need to answer the question of what the Phoenix resurrected in 1974 was. So if we look at the old Phoenix heat records, part of it has to do with Nixon's downfall. June 12, 1974. Phoenix heat record stretch begins. June 8, 1974. USA and Saudi Arabia sign military and economy agreement. August 8, 1974. Nixon resignation. But what is reborn? I noticed a curious pattern tied to Saudi Arabia. My 1974 Yellow Brick Road Decode showed that the symbol was in exhausting a massive amount of money for a purpose. The modern repeat of that tour is tied to Saudi Arabia, and I suspect the old version was as well. Funding takedown of Nixon. And after money is gone, a phoenix dies and is reborn brighter. June 11, 1974. Saudis to increase share in Aramco from 25 to 60%, world's most profitable company, shrinking U.S. interests. Let's reconcile with other records. The hottest day overall in Phoenix. June 26, 1990. Phoenix hottest day ever for Phoenix. June 26, 1990. Bush breaks campaign vow and agrees to raise taxes. This was the first thing Bush did, and viewed as a major reason he lost the next election. And what was Saudi Arabia doing at the time? Trump purchased the once world's largest yacht from a Saudi Arabia Adnan Khashoggi as he was caught up in Iran-Contra. June 25, 1990. Trump sells shipyard/Trump princess to Saudi Arabia/Al Walid. June 26, 1990. Hottest day ever in Phoenix. Battle of the Bonds, year both with yacht set pieces. June 6, 1983. Bond film Octopussy Roger Moore ends on yacht. October 7, 1983. Bond film Never Say Never Again. Sean Connery returns as James Bond after leaving the role. Plot involves the Khashoggi yacht as villains, flying saucer. My hypothesis is that in each prior case Saudi Arabia rebounded with record profit. A phoenix rising after the grave of money spent. E.g. the world's most expensive painting, for example, Savior of the World, bought by SA from Russia just before taking down Al Walid. And they keep spending. Which goes to ops. Record money spent goes to ops with these big sports deals. July 24, 2023. Microsoft may be forced to share user data with Saudi Arabia after investing $2 billion in cloud storage facility. Moving towards all sorts of end games. The 1990s Bond comms are something that I'm still investigating. The surprise return of Sean Connery, first Bond, after giving up the role to another actor. He wasn't the only returning Bond character either. Octopussy was the Bond girl from Bond 1974. 1974 brings us back to Nixon and takeovers. December 19, 1974. Man with the Golden Gun Bond. December 19, 1974. Vice President Nelson Rockefeller inaugurated. December 20, 1974. Godfather 2 USA, Strings. December 12, 1974. Jimmy Carter announces candidacy for POTUS. December 12, 1974. Godfather 2 debut. Outside of Bretton Woods, another thing made enemies for Nixon was he threatened the CIA to expose the JFK assassination. This led to stronger attempts at coding ops and keeping it out of the hands of the government. January 27, 1975. Senate Select Committee Intelligence investigating the CIA for illegal acts. January 30, 1975. Rubik Puzzle Cube Patent, Encoded Symbol. Just notice the connection with Simba Toys and Rubik's Cubes, that may explain the name choice. Al-Walid still has the yacht. I've been trying to discern what it represented as a com, but no clear patterns over years have emerged. Though we do know from both Q and my other decodes he's involved with blackmail hotels and children at least. Commander Byte. Record heat wave continues. July 25, 2023. Like a hot tub, water temperatures off Florida soar over 100 degrees, stunning experts. Interesting to note what else has been in the news the last few days. July 26, 2023. Joe Biden's dog bit Secret Service staff at least 10 times in 4 months, records show. What is going on behind the scenes right now for comms like this? Let's go into history for the answer. Biden's dog, Major, shares a name with a Fed Roosevelt's presidential dog. Both German Shepherd dogs were known for biting. Teddy Roosevelt also had a dog famous for biting. Famous for ripping the pants off foreign dignitaries and congressmen. Given the comms tied to him and blackmail, seems likely the dog was used to define this. Note in the above tweet the ambassador with pants ripped off bore no ill will and called the dog a gentleman. He became famous for being an American ally. First foreign dignitary ever to have a memorial built on federal land. Honored by FDR. Jean-Jules Jusserand Memorial. An obscure federal monument honors the French diplomat who served as ambassador to the U.S. during WWI. Which tells me the symbol of blackmailing is likely. FDR's dog was also known for ripping the pants off of people. But that doesn't necessarily give us the answer to the modern version. 19 May 1908, equals Roosevelt dog, Pete, Reign of Terror. St. Petersburg plus 1905 equals the riots that weakened Russia. 1905 Teddy Roosevelt negotiates peace between Russia plus Japan. September 1, 1905, Kobe steal Russia/Japan. Teddy Roosevelt's had a Japanese judo, flipping, master. The most famous FDR dog, Fala. November 10, 1940, Walt Disney begins serving as an informer for the FBI. November 10, 1940, Fala relocated to White House President Franklin Delano Roosevelt Terrier. November 13, 1940, Fantasia. Fantasia symbol being the military work. Taking it all together. And the new version of White House dog, biting, may be court stuff going on behind the scenes. December 20, 2021, Maxwell trial juror deliberations begin. December 20, 2021, Biden dog commander arrives at White House. Countdown Judiciary. July 23, 2021, Joe Biden, 150 years ago I was chairman of the Judiciary. July 23, 2021, Tokyo Olympics. Plus 150 days. December 20, 2021, Maxwell deliberations begin. December 20, 2021, volcano 5 largest booms ever. December 20, 2021, Davos postponed COVID. But I still need to dig deeper to solve it. The core of the new comms is biting the protection of the president. It could be tied to the Biden downfall as his protections are removed. Dog named after son, some sources say. Tip to the incidents, the conservative watchdog group Judicial Watch filed a lawsuit to get access to 194 pages of emails and texts. Comms of push to get Biden docs. Biden's dog, Commander, has been biting Secret Service agents. The conservative group Judicial Watch obtained Secret Service emails complaining about Commander being aggressive. One bite sent an agent to the hospital. There's also these bits about the dogs with a Donald Trump chew toy, which reminds me of all the going after Trump and how that's all slated to backfire. I need to dig deeper for precision. But at least you can see potential pieces for now. Interesting new developments in Africa. July 27, 2023. Niger coup leader US trained. Niger coup leader joins long line of US trained mutineers. Brig General Musa Salowo Barmo, who trained at Fort Benning, Georgia, helped oust Niger's democratically elected president in coup. Reminds me of what happened in Afghanistan. And if that's the case, then it's likely more global cleanup. I mean, what are the odds that it wasn't held together by corruption? In fact, looking closer, Niger historically was the highest uranium production in Africa, which itself is the second highest in the world. So it's possible that taking it is akin to taking an Epstein, and thus the strings of the African Union itself. Africa is way bigger than most realize. So if this is the push to flip it, could be the biggest event in a long time. I'm being optimistic, as I often am. I haven't dug deep enough to be certain, but I will. Either way, it's likely a culprit of heat wave hysteria. Another, Afghanistan equals setting up a place for self-governance. This is done by kicking Western occupiers out for a host of reasons. One of the things that made Afghanistan obvious was the fact that Trump had freed the very guy that took over. I found something equally transparent in Niger just a minute ago. July 28, 2023. Last domino to fall, Niger upheaval extends coup belt. The EU's High Representative for Foreign Policy described Niger as a haven of stability when he visited last month. This is where looking into context is crucial. So, what exactly was the context of that haven of stability in Niger? Turns out it was as he was announcing a 66 million aid to Niger. 666 comms identifying his faction as the villain. A comm of playing the villain to the faction to take over. A full awareness of the forces preparing to take over and then inciting them with a smug statement. Inciting a revolution. Cutting strings on puppet states before disclosure. Hot pre-disclosure 1 to 12. Speaking of disclosure. All this hot news everywhere invokes a certain set of Q posts. D equals D class, 6 letters connotate visibility to 666. We are still in pre-D class, and this year has had a greater emphasis on hot than any year I can think of. Q further defines events in August with the movie to come. Exposure of criminal acts. Remember the D class equals 6 com. Hunter took payments of $666K, and in Ukraine Joe Biden's 2020 campaign was a 666 com. The symbol in this context is acting as the villain. It is a show planned out from both sides. These comms also mark the flipping of CBS as important to that hot D class. When you look at the timing. 2017, Q, sexual harassment exit plus future for swamp drain. September 9, 2018, CBS Chairman/CEO Moonves let go due to sexual assault allegations. September 10, 2018, Q, why are powerful people resigning due to past sexual misconduct allegations? October 31, 2019, Fox News Catherine Herridge joins CBS. The implication being of the former Fox News star having a willingness to report truth. Hard to believe CBS would go near truth with a 20-foot pole, but if they flipped. Q also connects another person to all of this. Another connector for hot August D-class ties into the marker of Ray is a sleeper. He assumed FBI Director Office August 2017. That sleeper designation implies a wait until action, and as he remains in office. So I look at recent tweets. All of them have to do with this. X black and white. One of the things to hit during the heat wave is the new Twitter rebranding. X, but what's particularly interesting about this is the fact that it's in black and white. I failed to notice this, but my readers did. It's actually a widespread comm not confined to Twitter. This is actually a calm I covered years ago, and if that was the origin point, then that makes what we see now even more interesting. So, let's take a look at my old take on this calm. Albeit it was never more than a hypothesis. I began decoding this calm when the CIA went black and white. My hypothesis was tied to the common way black and white is used in conversation. As in a black and white choice. Notice CIA puppet strings and recruitment. I was never sure if that was the correct answer though. I thought perhaps it was a signal to flip for those who had been on the fence. This might explain why Obama and other people who I suspect act as faces for many people underneath to act in accordance with. Notice one of the things that new CIA did was launch an Instagram account. This is interesting because Instagram is one of the major apps that went black and white. A reader has informed me that half of Oppenheimer is in black and white. Which, given my take on that film, fits. So my take was it's kind of like a clear signal calm, only instead of asking for clear communication in general, it's asking for a clear answer. I mention that because I found this interesting as well. August 5, 2023. Mega Millions jackpot jumps to $1.55 billion, largest in its history. Given most things are rigged, I would bet the lottery is as well, so intentionally going 55 clear signal. What might be funded? I bought this black and white CIA history special thing this month. Outrageously priced at $15, but it felt like a good lead. I'd love it if funded ops actually start letting people see inside the CIA, because it's overdue. July 4, 2023. What's the Instagram Threads logo supposed to be, anyway? Interesting, and gear, and this was Facebook's answer to Twitter with Threads? They went black and white just before Twitter did. My gold decode from 4 years ago revisited. Next, let's talk about a curious news article I stumbled upon as it appears to validate an old decode. Relevant part starts at 1 hour 12 minutes. She goes into how the true election results of 2020 have not been revealed so far to avoid a civil war, and that Trump has the evidence. That EOs were prepared specifically for 2020 election interference that acted as a trap for the interference that did occur. All of it leverage currently held. Moreover, the case against Trump is one in which he can subpoena evidence. All confirmations to many of my decodes, but one line actually stopped me in my tracks. Right after 1 hour and 12 minute mark, it took 650 planes to remove our gold from the Vatican Bank. All of that is stuff I decoded from various comms, but the one that really jumps out at me is the 650 planes with Vatican gold. It's funny because I decoded that happening from comms and I have never heard of any news reported anywhere until today about it. Not just when it happened, but the lead up and aftermath. Right after it happened we had Google losing the golden egg, then we had Trump gaining the gold cake. Back then I used to do a lot of drudge decoding. Note this juxtaposition of golden egg lost by CNN and Jeff Bezos and gained by some mysterious king, which is exactly how Trump was characterized as the gold flu on June 6, 2018, the very next day. I didn't decode that last part until just now actually. Didn't pay attention to the Times cover then. But the rest I decoded long ago, and the main thing that tipped me off back then was a string of bizarre titles on the keyboard. Talking planes and gold coming June 6, 2018. I gave a number of hypotheses about what it meant. The clear part was that we had literally moved a ton of gold out of the Vatican by planes, and that is what we learn now literally happened. If it turns out it wasn't on June 6, 2018, then that was probably comms setting it up. Because comms are the communications between factions and not necessarily what is officially reported. Either way, my decode was specific about Vatican plus tons of gold plus planes. So for that now to be reported is one of a long line of proofs that my work is legit, smiley face. Returning to updates. Celebrity boxing comms. Justin Trudeau just got separated as announced on Instagram. Given this is the hot month, might this be a comm of some kind? And if so, what kind? So I went to the first post and found something interesting and potentially very related. The very first post is tied to his wedding and the next posts are tied to a celebrity boxing match he won. Sound familiar? It reminded me of this whole Musk vs. Zuckerberg cage fight being hyped up. Let's look at both fights and reconcile and see if there is a connection. I wouldn't have thought to connect the two events if not for an article with a timeline of their history. It gave the celebrity boxing match as the very next point after the marriage. The opponent was a conservative senator. Now, given marriages typically symbolize two factions coming together, what would this marriage symbolize? She was a TV host. As in representing the industry of mainstream media. Marriage of Trudeau to good press, which is exactly what he has gotten. This ties perfectly into his beating of conservative as he took over the government right after that win. Which means the divorce likely represents an end of some kind to the press relationship. Not necessarily of him specifically, as he's likely being a face for others. The original boxing match with Brazeau was tied to Trudeau beating conservatives. Brazeau had another wrestling match. May 30, 2015, conservative Senator Patrick Brazeau body slammed at wrestling event. A lot of interesting things happened around this time frame. The same day a tragic death occurred. Probably coincidence, but I mention it just because he has been a hot topic. It's possible these comms were tied clearing the field for HRC. The expected third-party run was to cripple the right wing. But that's highly speculative. The part that's likely is the relationship between the press and boxing comms. The symbolism of a media push in relation to winning an arm match. Same principle with this comm. August 7, 2023. Russia to launch first moon lander since 1976 in race with Indian spacecraft. After the 1976 moon digger, Russia entered a dark age ever since. Until now. I find that dark age starting interesting given what happened the following year. 1976, around the same time, is when copyright law changed for new technologies, the first time since 1909 for TV/movies. Extending it 70 years past day of death. August 24, 1976. Soyuz 21 sudden end to last USSR space mission evacuate. August 24, 1976. Seattle Mariners named. Time's up. Q clearly defined D-class in relation to the hot August comms. August 2019 plus hot plus 4 years equals August 1, 2023. The record-breaking heat wave tied to 12 days is technically up. Hot pre_D was clearly defined as disclosure, and so what happens after the 12 days of non-disclosure? The obvious answer is disclosure. Note what Elon Musk posted today. Note the cat is on the stove hot cooking. Q chose to post hot countdown on the 13th day with checkmate following it. Given it was a 12-day countdown pre_D, that the 13th day would have important comms tied to disclosure. Nudes plus cat eyes fits perfectly. Who is talking? Think big. But what exactly does providing nudes mean in this context? It would be easy to assume blackmail, but that's not the only possible answer. Often tweet comms are sequential. The next tweet shows a full text exchange with Mark Zuckerberg. This is the full message. This could be a clue as to what nudes imply. Of all people, it's the full text message of Zuckerberg. Facebook keeps track of everything. This strikes me as a symbol of all the social media tracking being used to prosecute. Who exactly is going to be prosecuted? That's where things get tricky, but odds are there are comms in the media to help define it. Often ops are set up for messaging to explain to the comms community what is happening. I may have found the right story tied to this. A teacher just pled not guilty, charged for negligence leading to death of a child. There are details in this article that make me think this could be announcing to people in MK networks they will be charged for child endangerment. Details like: the victim was known to be planning on using the bathroom for suicide and yet was left alone there for 17/Q minutes. Surveillance footage showed her being irritated with the boy instead of looking out for him. The star on the child's shirt in the article. The MK system persists because of plausible deniability. Participators don't break laws in ways that can be charged, but they do work together with an awareness of these abuse networks creating human sacrifices. Many simply add pressure to the abused until they break. What we may be seeing is announcement to networked people that thought they were safe being told they are not and should make deals. Extensive records chronicle interactions with MK subjects. These can demonstrate participation or even just negligence despite awareness. 4/4/4 comms. 44 billion for Twitter, for a 4 arrest and many others I've gone over as comms. Gonna bang on his door tomorrow. March 27, 2020, equals Q Fed takeover. +4. March 31, 2020, equals end of Trump's 15 days COVID plan. +4. April 4, 2020, equals Marine countdown ends. +4. April 8, 2020, equals military plus Musk Starlink. +4. April 12, 2020, equals Harvest Week. Twitter was 44 billion. First indictment was April 4th. Now we have the fourth indictment. August 15, 2023, former President Donald Trump's fourth indictment, annotated. This is probably going to be the one to pay attention to. The Trump defense for keeping documents is the Clinton socks case. Clinton kept 79 Nixon-like tapes in a sock drawer. The ruling body didn't even check the contents before asserting Clinton had sole discretion on what was okay to keep. The use of socks as the place to keep classified information invokes the Clinton cat of the same name. Likely what is being discussed is not a literal sock drawer, but the symbol Clinton invoked of his handler or associates that keep secrets. January 15, 1943, Pentagon finished the largest office complex in world. 1,000 people complete the air conditioners. January 22, 1943, world record temperature changed Spearfish, South Dakota. What happened during this time period to warrant this change in temp? January 15, 1943, Pentagon finished. January 14, 1943, FDR travels from Miami to Morocco to meet with Churchill for Casablanca Conference, the first American president to travel overseas by airplane. January 23, 1943, Casablanca, one of the top grossing pictures. January 24, 1943, Casablanca Conference end. The famous plane finale of Casablanca. It parallels FDR being the first POTUS in office to ride a plane, as well as the danger involved in the trip. The plot of the film revolves around Bogart deciding to no longer stand on the sidelines and commit to acting against Nazis. This translates into the media siding with the Allies over the Axis. Pentagon being where military press coordination happens. Thus temperature shift calm. January 22, 1943, world record temperature change. January 23, 1943, Casablanca debut. January 24, 1943, Casablanca Conference end. It would allow painting of Nazis as inhuman monsters to rally the world against them. Of course they did do terrible things, but I'm not talking about objective history, I'm talking about press turning up the heat. No matter what the truth, they could push much farther. Consider the treatment of Trump. Here's a list of press quotes I found today with dates and media that can be verified. This isn't press reporting, this is creating a monster in the public eye. It's group mentality. If you control enough press, you can bully the rest into agreement. When a journalist breaks from the rest of the media pack, which is quite rare, their careers are typically threatened or ruined by the rest of the press. Even more quotes. And we could continue on. Seriously, there is no end to this. What created this situation? Let's go back in time just a bit. Deflate Gate. In 2015, one of the biggest stories in the news involved Tom Brady and his team being punished for secretly deflating footballs. This is a calm, and to understand the message sent with it, we have to first talk about Tom Brady himself. Brady comms are tied to Brady disclosure. August 3, 1977. Tom Brady born. August 3, 1977. MK Ultra Senate hearing. August 4, 1977. Q clearance DOE begins. Evidence that is material to the guilt or innocence of a defendant. Brady equals hiding highly classified evidence. Thus a story about Brady ordering others to leak air from footballs of the Colts is a com for some kind of major leak. But what kind of leak was it? This is where we have to look at timelines. Often just charting out the key dates of the story will reveal everything. January 18, 2015. Tom Brady ordered the deliberate deflation, leaking, of footballs used in the Patriots' victory. January 18, 2015. 4chan janitor begins leaking internal data on 8chan. Don't misunderstand, the 4chan story isn't the leak, but it is a highly relevant com tied to it. The 4chan story is a message about fixing the leak. January 18, 2015. 4chan janitor leaks. January 18, 2015. Owner of 4chan Moot reacts. Janitors are now required to sign a contract that binds them legally and prevents them from leaking any kind of info. January 21, 2015. Moot suddenly retires. Clearly whatever was leaked was tied to computer security. It's also likely that to prepare these messages it happened days or weeks before the public message. Do we know of any famous leak that fits those parameters around that time? Yes, we do. The answer is the Podesta/Hillary leaks. Timeline fits perfectly. December 2014. First Kim.com message hinting at hacked Hillary secrets. January 2015. Deflate Gate leak. February 2015. Podesta, I'm definitely for making an example of a suspected leaker. With the answer we can now understand the reactions across the media. This Brady football leak was used to publicly discuss HRC's upcoming scandal. A scandal so big it tipped things in Trump's favor. Something that big was naturally going to have a big com. The requirement to have all 4chan janitors sign NDAs was a call-out to anyone in Seth Rich's position. To go through extra measures to prevent more hacks/leaks. We can see this in Podesta's emails because the hacks continued. He talks about finding and punishing leaks in February. The threats of punishment also got comms. Seth Rich was nicknamed Panda, and so we have this article about a panda stealing HRC's priceless vase and that she should shoot the panda. They also talk in those emails about finding the tasty sauce as in source. What happened when they found sauce? Alaskan dentist Seth Lookhart sentenced to 12 years for extracted a tooth July 2016. He cheers after extraction pick 3. Know any famous Seth deaths then? July equals Seth Rich death. July 10, 2016. Seth Rich's death, DNC Data Director of New Voter Registration. July 11, 2016. CrowdStrike paid $98,849.84 by DNC. August 2, 2016. Sean Lucas death, DNC process server and close friend of Seth Rich. August 3, 2016. CrowdStrike again paid by DNC. Now that we understand the point, you can look through the timeline and see the little comms then discussing it. Here's a minor story that popped up searching archives. A blip less than a week before the 4chan/football leak of a supposed Nintendo leak. Maybe coincidence, but I noticed they call out a bounty hunter game with Armenian accent with a butterfly on her back and a sniper rifle boarding an alien ship to blow it up. Butterfly equals transformation. Possibly a call being put out to do what? Deaths caused by Hurricane Hillary to be labeled suicides. Anyway, a few more things can be inferred from these comms. For example, the fact that in rigging the championship they made it 45-7. Winning, 45. 45th president is what the contest was for. They picked the Blue Colts to be the victim of Brady disclosure. Horse symbolism is sometimes used for presidential races. The symbolism of an election race naturally fits with horse races, but there are many other uses. October 28, 2022. Tom Brady and Gisele Bündchen divorce. October 27, 2022. Elon Musk Twitter acquisition $4.4 billion. Comms tied to now having an avenue for disclosure. 2006, Twitter founded. 2006, Brady and Gisele Bündchen meet. Marriages/divorces often represent two sides coming together or apart. Makes Twitter's new EX logo particularly meaningful. After his divorce. August 7, 2023, Brady and Russian Irina Shayk together. Note Shayk was with Bradley before Brady. Bradley is another Brady comm, so these two getting together means Brady plus Victoria's Secret model. The organization most publicly tied to Epstein's bank account. More recent news. Remember the comms of the Roosevelt dogs biting people's pants off, exposing them? A symbol tied to using compromising data to get people in line. Might that be relevant now? End of protection. August 18, 2023. Lolita the orca dies at Miami Seaquarium after half-century in captivity. This is a symbol I've covered a few times. Lolita the orca dies at Miami Seaquarium after half-century in captivity. Lolita, an orca whale held captive for more than a half-century, has died at the Miami Seaquarium as caregivers prepared to move her from the theme park. Lolita was captured alongside the whale, Winston. Lolita just died. When did Winston die? April 26, 1986, Chernobyl disaster. April 26, 1986, Winston the whale death. Chernobyl disaster was a symbol for the transition of control in blackmailing. May 3, 1986, Silver Dollar City, Tennessee reopens as Dollywood theme park. May 4, 1986, Chernobyl contained. Chernobyl is famous for the theme park that opened the day of the disaster. Dolly Parton, no trap. Symbol of safeguarding against police action. My last post goes over something relevant. September 15, 1955, Lolita, story about a man lusting over a sedated child in a hotel, Russian author. September 14, 1955, Tutti Frutti Little Richard's breakout hit recorded. As the post goes over, part of this is about control over leaders. How is control attained? April 17, 1937, Daffy Duck debut 17 equals Q equals secret. April 18, 1937, Sally Horner born famous child victim and Lolita inspiration. Forcing a duck. The duck parodies Carmen Miranda. Moreover, she was part of FDR's Good Neighbor policy, a push to improve relations in Latin America. The Tutti Frutti psalm was a part of that. The creation of banana republics is connected to all of this. The very first one got its name in 1902 during Teddy Roosevelt's first full year. Kermit Roosevelt, son of Teddy, was also tied to regime changes. Not the least of which was in Egypt. This set the stage for the overthrows of the banana republics, like in Guatemala when they tried to take back the land from United Fruit Company. Keep the Roosevelt Egypt capture in mind as we return to Lolita whale. August 8, 1970, ceasefire between Egypt and Israel, brokered by U.S. Secretary of State. August 8, 1970, Lolita orca captured in Washington waters. September 28, 1970, Egypt President Nasser died of heart attack. Note also it was the infamous 1970 Penn-Washington capture. The symbol of pen plus Washington makes me think some kind of order by the president's pen allowed this change in control. Not sure what specifically yet though. Chernobyl is often connected to Fukushima and both whales were held at Seattle. What tied to Japan and kids is in the news recently. 12-year-old wearing 17/Q perfect pitched World Series game. Compared to a man with a nickname of Showtime. But don't take that seriously, haven't dug into it enough to verify/reject. Just looking at likely comms trending. Hurricane Hillary is trending right now. Have we got a storm on our hands? Again. I have yet to dig here. It's merely my at-a-glance eyebrow raise. Almost all the reporting I see on this Hurricane Hilary is focused on it being the first of this kind since September 1939. That's when World War II broke out. I'm not sure if that's what they are referencing, but that is one heck of a month to reference as a calm. Might this be a mark of big things going on? Big conflicts? The end of the beginning. Also trending this week. I strongly suggest you listen to that video. Nobody knew who this guy was, and within days he hit #1 in country. Even if you don't like country, you might like this song. Lyrics calling out Epstein Island and all the efforts to control people. Why is that trending this week? There's a reason, and it ties back to Commander. March 25, 2021, plus 120 days equals July 23, 2021. July 23, 2021. Japan Olympic torch passing event ends, started at Fukushima nuclear disaster July 23, 2021. Joe Biden, 150 years ago I was chairman of the judiciary. July 23, 2021. Tokyo Olympics plus 150 days December 20, 2021. Maxwell jury deliberations begin December 20, 2021. Biden dog commander arrives. The comms tied to the dog biting people over 4 months. Hot pre-disclosure/pre-game. August 21, 2023. Washington Commanders end Ravens record 24-game preseason win streak. I'll be going into the Ravens symbolism in the future. Here is an early decode of them and several other updates including space, but I intend on making a space-focused post soon, so I won't include those here. Regardless, we can make strong conclusions based on other comms going on now. For example, Fukushima disaster nuclear water to be released starting today. August 24, 2023. No way is it coincidence they timed the nuclear water timing to this. August 24, 2023. Trump is set to surrender at a Georgia jail on charges he sought to overturn his 2020 election loss. Water equals info as always. So that nuclear water release is likely evidence that will put certain parties in legal crosshairs. As I've long decoded, the fourth indictment, arrest, sends a message. A public show to those in crosshairs soon, this is you. Think about it. The very person they tried to ruin being their own avatar. The very event they wished to see more than any other being a show of their own downfall. It's poetic. Their own blind followers cheering every revelation all the while they know the truth. Flips notwithstanding, of course, because that's the point of it all. The show has long been a slow-burning campaign to get as many people to flip and cooperate as possible. To take deals and testify. How many times was, "Enjoy the show," said? Think about why. What was the show, if not actors playing parts? Think about this quote. "Stay with me, deplorables, you'll love how this movie ends." What was / is the movie if not what we are seeing now? Due to my decoding this is obvious, but even without you can look at the circumstances and reach similar conclusions. Because if things weren't like I decode, why would Twitter suddenly become a bastion of free speech? It's all preparation. Reaching the peak of the heat wave this week. All the signs pointing to yesterday, and what did it climax with? Fourth indictment leads to the first mugshot. Mugshot of the century. A reader of mine suggested before this headline went up that this was the mugshot heard around the world. They specifically connected it to the Q posts with that phrase in it. Take a look at context. Q uses the phrase exactly 4 times. Social media is called out. Another highlights D-Class and POTUS. Judgment Day was the post directly after with a highlight on evidence tied to conducting using private email addresses. D-Class. Judgment. 4 times. 4.4 billion for Twitter. Fourth indictment and so many more. Q called out the pre-D-Class August 1, 2019 setting up the hot 1 to 12. And of course August 2019. For years equals 2023. The Hot D-Class Countdown. We've had nothing but record-breaking heat news this month, and the climax looks to have been that mugshot. A mugshot that sends a message to others of the future they may see. That mugshot was a shot heard around the world to who? The specific people discussed are the multitudes waiting on the sideline hoping to wait out Trump and then get right back to dark businesses. Nope. Mugshot time, not for Trump, that's just a show, but the real targets. Telegram chat. Join the Decoding Telegram group. This has been 2023 Record HOT Wave Decoded.